I'm Susan from Worldpeacefull, and I'm going to be doing many videos on world peace and various other topics. I'm also a poet, and I'm going to read you a poem that I've written. But I would like to premise this by saying that I see poetry as the language of the heart. There have been some incredible poets like Rumi who have talked about love. And in our Western society, the art of poetry is fading in comparison to videos and, the real quick instant gratification that we get from technology. I don't know why I became a poet. I think it was very much within my spirit to be one. I can remember writing poems at 15 on the back of coasters, in actual fact. And I found some poetry that I'd written when I was quite young, and the poetry I'm writing today is very different to what I wrote when I was quite young as a teenager and some of the things that were of interest to me back then. Whereas today my poetry is more inspired. Sometimes I've felt such an urge to write in the middle of the night that I've just literally had to get up, and I didn't want to. I was really tired. I didn't want to get up and write. It's not automatic writing or anything like that. It's definitely poetry coming from within me, but I'm feeling this urge that I have to express something. So I've written actually 1,500 poems. It's hard to know which one to start with, but I've just pulled this poem up, at random really. It's on another computer next to me, so I will be looking to the right. I never remember my poetry. So if you can bear with me looking away and reading it. I'll try and read it in a way that it helps you. I hope I don't go too fast because I'm not used to reading my poetry to anybody. This is really the beginning of me sharing my work to the world, and I will be publishing my poetry at some point because I've found real pearls in it. What I'd like to say about poetry, I have come to experience it as a higher knowledge. Now, when the brain or the thought process or the intellect is out of the way, and when you're engaged in a creative process, it's actually coming from the feeling state, not the intellectual state that has to have certain schemas followed. It has to have certain evidence in order to argue its case. Poetry is a very different phenomenon. I don't get in the way of my poetry, and I don't even know what this poetry is. I don't know what I'm going to write until I've written it. I never remember it. I could never quote any of my poetry. It's often quite long, but I feel it as a song line. I feel it as a frequency. And it's really fascinating. I haven't actually analysed a lot of my poetry. I haven't gone over it, but I can feel something in it. And I definitely feel pearls of truth emerging through it because my intellect gets out of the way. So I'll read it to you and you can decide what you think about it. You can replay bits and pieces anyway, hence the beauty of internet. And I would say with my poetry, do I agree or disagree with it? I don't really know. Most of it I would say I agree with. There have been bits and pieces that have come through that I have no idea what they mean, and I've had to Google things. It's been really fascinating actually to get ideas coming to me and then finding out what they actually mean. So everyone's got the capability to be a poet, I believe. I think creativity is in our DNA, all of us. I guess I have perhaps a talent for communication, so maybe that's why poetry is very easy for me. It's probably one of the easiest things that I ever do. I always do it in one sitting. I never edit it. So I'll read this to you and you can gain what you gain. I hope it's of great service to you. It's called Opening Your Eyes to Reality. To open your eyes is to stop and pause, to cease the busyness, to disable fear that has a grip, that has a hold, that plays it safe, that pays the bills, that has no time for thrills, as the familiar feels for what is known, in a world unknown to billions. An imagined community, a philosophy of thought forms, to inform of conjecture, to postulate of possibility, to sketch stories, coining the memorable phrase. But what does wisdom look like outside of the written word? It is the silent hand that touches yours. It is the look to see if you are okay. It is a friend that is a stranger who stops to notice. For in this moment the world has changed, and one has responded to change for the moment. I am travelling outside of the box. I am looking at it boxed in on all sides. I am seeing structures of thinking unquestioned. For each thought a world is seen. Just imagine the world of the unseen without thought. When one is busy, when one is thinking, thoughts are seen and believed. For life is business as usual. And change brings up our greatest fears, that we may be wrong, that it is not so sound, that we are treading water, that the sand is shifting. From which direction does this new wind blow? The tsunami of change is still wind that blows from all directions. Returning to first principles is to undo what is learned. It is to create a new track, to pull out the backpack and try a new road. For when you step out of comfort, when you step through another zone, when you are all alone, the silent silhouette of reality forms a rainbow that leads you home. For the pot of gold was always the alchemy of love. For gold is just a base metal that may glitter in ingots, not petals. Yet the centerpiece was always the flower. As nature's encrusted creation, a crowning glory of life, a showcase of crystalline symmetry. For when one moves beyond words and questions life as itself, the illusion of self-deception fades like a mist before the morning sun, for the light of understanding feels what is real. For there is nothing to do but be who you are. For life moves, sings and dances through you, and your life is never in doubt. As you are part of this setting sun, as your eyes sparkling with joyful recognition that there is no more suffering in the story, as the story will soon end. For always there are happy endings, as the beginning of the real life is limitless, as truth displays simply what is, without reason. In the sunlight of your smile, this is the 1,000 miles that knows the soul of every soul. I'll leave you to contemplate that with much love.